This is Out of Bounds. The band's back together for another edition of Out of Bounds here on Know Your News. That's me, O'Brien. I'm John Alba. This is your home of the weird, wacky, and wild in the sports world. This is Out of Bounds. Mia, welcome back. You were on the road to your
literally, figuratively, emotionally.
Your fake homeland last week.
Well, and truly on the road. Shout out to United for. I've never had, and I'm actually talking to the right person. I have never had a flight outright canceled. Hours, thankfully, hours before getting to the airport. I've had flights, get delayed or the crew clocks out. I've had that happen, but I've never had waking up at 3:45 in the morning and the flight has been canceled. But that is what happened, John Alba. And as you know, living in the great state of New Jersey, United has been having some issues, or at least 2 weeks ago they were. And so, yeah, knowing full well, I had friends stranded in Newark and other friends stranded at LAX at the time. We made the decision, said this could be a Southwest moment. Don't want to risk that. So we moved the rental car situation, got a refund on the flight, and drove to the great state of Iowa. Truly going the distance, John.
How long did that drive take?
18 hours. We left here around 9:30 from Northeast Florida in the morning. We left at 9:30 with some pit stops along the way. Got to St. Louis by midnight. So with a stop for lunch, stops for gas, stop at the grocery store. I guess that puts it at about 14 hours plus you get an hour because you go back, time travel. And then 4 hours flat from St. Louis to Iowa City. So that was easy. The Thursday morning was the easy part, but I said, let's just power through, get to St. Louis, which I had never actually gotten a chance to see that ballpark or that downtown John Alba. And so that was a very nice experience and unexpected. And then just continued to the great state of Iowa. And then from there throughout the state and then on to Illinois. And thankfully, the flight home did take off. I got a little nervous when that got delayed. I think I will have PTSD for a couple months now. But yes, got the flight back. That's all that mattered.
Well, if you'd like to tell us about your travel woes, you go over to kynchat.com. You leave us one of those super chats, or you can just hop on into our YouTube comments, and we will throw those up on air as well. Should you choose to leave us a super chat, we'd love to hear your thoughts because she mentioned the ballpark in St. Louis. We'll be talking a bunch of baseball on today's episode as we hit the Midsummer Classic time of the year.
Some people call this the slowest sports week of the year, but John Alba refers to this as his Holy Week.
Yeah, in some capacity for sure. In others, I could go either way, but we will get into that on this week's edition of Out of Bounds on the Know Your News Network. Make sure you're subscribed to Know Your News on YouTube, of course, so you make sure you don't miss an episode of Out of Bounds every single Monday here at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, Mia, you were off last week, so why don't you hit us with our little toasty toast this week? What do we got?
Yes, I would like to give a toast to while wedding season is far from over.
I have 7 between, look at this, not to cut you off. I have 7 between September and November. I have 7 weddings between September and November.
I didn't know there were that many weekends available.
I know. Tell me about it.
Well, that's fun. Well, as you know, I have not been able to truly participate in the opening toast because I've been dieting to try to fit into a bridesmaid's dress, which I did. But now I can drink beer again. Also, I'm specifically using the koozie, John, from said wedding. Shout out to Hannah and Bon, the Wagners, because I don't know if you knew this. My good friends Hannah and Bon, they have mini dachshunds. And so this was the theme.
Oh, okay. Like a good wiener dog. I get that.
Yes, cool. We belong together. Get it?
Because they're long.
So cheers to them. And also, I am drinking the new Blue Moon, like the light version of some kind that I drank after the Luke Combs concert. But our good friend Andrew Badillo was like, yeah, let's throw a couple back. And then he promptly passed out. So then I didn't end up really getting to enjoy it because I was like, well, I got to dump this because everybody's going to sleep. So I will enjoy it during tonight's Out of Bounds.
Little ASMR. There it is. Let's do it to them. Okay.
It's Monday. You needed it. I know I did. As I was driving home from work, I was like, man, I need this blue moon right now.
Drink a little too much whiskey there. Okay. Oh, baseball. What can you
You
not?
love baseball.
I really do love baseball. There's no doubting that, Mia O'Brien. And tonight, if you love baseball, well, it's a good night for you because it is the 2023 Home Run Derby. Home Run Derby. You remember late 90s, early 2000s, this thing caught fire. You had the era of McGuire, the era of Sosa, Griffey. Truly was an experience. Then there were some down years. And then we've had a little bit of a renaissance in recent years. So I ask you, Mia, regarding the Major League Baseball All-Star Week, does the Derby matter anymore? Do we care about the Midsummer Classic? And then lastly, who wins the Home Run Derby tonight?
Well, I will turn that question on its head, John Alba, because I want to begin with now the first event of the All-Star Week, which was the MLB Draft. Historically speaking, the draft wasn't really televised until about 10, 15 years ago, in which case it was telecast out of our favorite studios in Secaucus, New Jersey. But that's a bit of a sterile environment. As cool as it was for these prospects, especially the high schoolers, to be flown out to New York, to get to see the Big Apple, and to get to be on the studio stage, there is something to the NFL's madness of creating a spectacle during the NFL draft week, to create this 3-day fan festival in the middle of their offseason. I am so proud of Major League Baseball for saying we see you doing that and we raise you adding to our All-Star Game festivities. They will never parallel the NFL draft, John, but I applaud Major League Baseball for saying, hey, let's look at the All-Star Week for what it is, which is a festival of and a celebration of baseball. And so culminates with the All-Star Game on Tuesday, the Home Run Derby, in my opinion. I think, and I'm very curious what the ratings will show, I think it draws more casual fans than the All-Star Game itself. And I think Major League Baseball not having a Sunday night baseball game and instead having the draft live from Seattle at Lumen Field, their football stadium, really was an opportunity for them to showcase the city of Seattle and also to bring even more fans into the environment that otherwise may not be that attuned to number one, Major League Baseball, but number two, the MLB draft.
So does the Home Run Derby matter, man?
Yes, it absolutely matters. Offense sells tickets. Come on now. And that's what this All-Star Week is about, selling tickets.
Do you prefer the revised format of recent years to the old format, or do you prefer the old format where you
to the Derby or with the All-Star Game?
With the Derby, where the Derby you had originally every player, you had the 10 outs and you got as many pitches as you needed.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that wasn't a home run wasn't out. Whereas in the last 8 years or so, we switched to this time format, and now it is timed where it doesn't matter how many outs you have. All that matters is the clock.
Well, part of that was because we had some home run derbies that were going deep into the night, John.
4.5 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah. And
Crazy.
while that's a lot of fun, baseball as a whole, as we know, has adopted the approach of people have tiny attention spans. We need to come up with a way to expedite games. And so if they're doing that for their regular games, why wouldn't they say, all right, we got to put a time limit on this for the home run derby? What I will say about it is there is this notion of, because you have this time frame and you're just cranking dingers, does that make the player sore for the week or two ahead? There's some people who say it might. I don't think so, and especially with the mashers in this year's field.
I think more people are concerned about the idea that your swing gets messed up from just trying to crank out dingers rather than necessarily fatigue. I think the new format for the Derby that we've been seeing for the last decade single-handedly saved it. Quite frankly.
Interesting.
I think that it made an event that was starting to lose its luster quite a bit to must-see television. I think the Home Run Derby is one of the most entertaining sporting events of the year, how it is currently presented. It is easy drama for anyone to get attached to. You don't have to be a huge sports fan to understand how the Home Run Derby is held. You can get behind it, and chicks dig the long ball, right? So why not try to own in on that and showcase your stars of tomorrow? I think Julio just last year, now he steps into, his home
ballpark
for this. I think his coming out party last year was really due to the Home Run Derby, and it showed how good he is, and it put eyes on him. even out there in Seattle. So
could I note that doing the Immaculate Grid, which you first brought to me on this very program, has brought to light how unversed I am in Seattle Mariners baseball and Oakland A's baseball. Like
yeah.
I'm going like through historical rosters, and I'm like, I didn't know he played on that team.
Did
So
you do today's yet?
of course I did today's. Now that's the new thing I do to wake up in the morning.
How'd you
I
do?
do it every day. I think today I was 8 of 9 because I couldn't believe that Bob Feller didn't have 3,000 strikeouts.
No, he did not. Come on. That was
Different era.
CC Sabathia.
Yeah, I know. That's on me.
Come on now.
Sad. I always forget he was with the Indians. I just think about his time with the Brewers.
I have completed every day of the Immaculate Grid since starting it, but I'm waiting for the first one to really get me. I've come close. There have been some that I've spent hours on trying to get, and I'm just sitting there, and then like a strike of lightning, I get 0.1% with Matt Lawton or something like that, and we are off.
So on brand for you, it hurts.
I mean, the Immaculate Grid is the living, breathing embodiment of guys will just sit around and talk about retired players for a living. That's literally that meme come to life. But
so let's bring it back to the home run derby, because you brought up Julio, whose coming out party was last year at the home run derby.
Yes.
When I look at the winner year by year winners since 2000, I'm not going to lie, John, outside of Garrett Anderson, perhaps, almost every single one of these game names was already a household name before they took the stage at the home run derby. Here's but it's not like some of these names. Ken Griffey Jr. back-to-back 98-99 winner. Sammy Sosa, Luis Gonzalez, Jason Giambi, Miguel Tejada, Bobby Abreu, Ryan Howard, Vlad Guerrero, Justin Morneau, Prince Fielder, David Ortiz, Cano, Prince Fielder II, Yoenis Cespedes, Todd Frazier, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto. Like, those are names that were already household names. And that's what I think makes it all the more entertaining. Let's go back to the last golf major. How many people were actually rooting for Wyndham Clark? There were so many more people literally on the course screaming Rory or screaming Ricky as Wyndham Clark was walking by. I think that as a society, while we love an underdog, we also very much love to see the favorites pull through in those big moments.
So who wins the home run derby this year?
I think Pete Alonso is going to win. He's the betting favorite right now. Although I do think the Julio Rodriguez being at home factor would be cool. I also think Mookie's been raking of late.
I think Mookie's the shortest player ever to compete in the home run derby.
Really? That's a fun little fact for you. Yeah, I think he's been raking. So's Rutschman then, for what it's worth. So I think all these guys are coming in pretty hot. And of course, Vlad Guerrero Jr. to follow his father would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know if you recall, but I had a stretch, and for those of you who aren't familiar with the brand, I had a stretch of about 9 years where I correctly predicted the home run derby winner every single year. And then it got broken 2 years ago. Last year.
Oh, by Pete Alonso.
Last year I missed as well. The year that Pete Alonso beat Vlad Guerrero Jr., I picked Vlad Guerrero Jr., even though Vlad hit more home runs in that derby. It was because of the nature of the format. I say this year Vlad Guerrero redeems me. And this year Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to do it. You know, the one thing about Vlad that works against him is his swing takes a lot out of him. And when you're talking about stamina in a tournament like this because of the clock, I could see that hurting him. I could see Julio getting it done this year in his home ballpark, for the record, especially with how he did last year. But I'm going with Vlad Guerrero Jr. to win the home run derby. And the last part of this question, Mia, do we care about the All-Star game itself?
No.
Are you okay with the fact that
I'm going to watch it because it's on TV?
Are you okay with the fact that there's no longer stakes attached to it?
No, because it's just
it's
an all-star showcase. That's all it is.
Did you like the stakes attached to it, or do you?
I was indifferent. I was honestly indifferent. I mean,
I personally, I did not like the stakes attached to it at all because I think it's an exhibition game, and when you take away a great season from a team just to acquiesce a stipulation from an exhibition game, I think that damages the integrity of your regular season quite a bit. Unfortunately, the All-Star game, which used to be this amazing thing, once interleague came into play with baseball, where you've got AL and NL teams playing each other all the time, you kind of lose the luster of AL players facing these NL players for the only time all season. Not that I have a problem with interleague play. It's just how I see it.
Well, since it is the halfway point of the Major League Baseball season, John Alba, it is time for our bold predictions in the second half of the Major League Baseball season. Who do you have?
My bold prediction for the second half of the Major League Baseball season. I have two trains of thought, but I'm not going to go with the first one that I initially had. I will say the Baltimore Orioles will make the ALCS at minimum.
Wow. At minimum.
At minimum. I'm not capping there. I think they could make the World Series.
Okay.
But they'd have to go through the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Tampa Bay Rays, I think, are just fantastic.
I like that.
But I think the Orioles have put a lot of the pieces together and are prepped to make a run. And I could see the Orioles being buyers at the trade deadline and going for it this year.
Wow. I appreciate that one a lot. My bold prediction, I'll flip it over to the National League. It pains me to say this, but I think the Cincinnati Reds come down to earth, John. I think the Brewers or the Cubs find a way to get it done, although I do think the Pirates are pesky. I don't know. They're still too young, in my opinion, although they have great pitching.
It's not a very strong division, though.
That's true. I would equate it to the Jaguars in the AFC South.
Of course, we have to draw it to the Jaguars.
Yeah, well, that's the only natural thing to do. I mean, look at these two teams. Like, they're both, what, 9 games? One's 9 games above 500.
The only natural thing to do. When I think of Cincinnati Reds, I say the natural comparison.
Yes, obviously, because another mid-market team. So I don't think the Reds will win the division. I'm curious if they then hold on to a wild card spot. I also think the Miami Marlins will find their way into one of those two wild card spots. While I don't think
that's very bold. I think they're on pace to do that, aren't they?
Yeah, but I think they're the team that everybody thinks could fade down the stretch. And I mean, are they a couple years ahead of schedule? Some may argue it. I would say Luis Arias does not hit 400, but he does at least take his team into the divisional round of the postseason.
Give me a bold prediction. What does Luis finish at?
I think he's going to finish at like right where he is at, quite honestly, like 385, which is that disappointing? Let me ask you that. Is it disappointing?
I'd be disappointed in the idea that we flirted with 400, but also, let's be realistic, hitting 400 is just unfathomable.
We already know who the AL and NL MVPs are. I think by many accounts, we know who the NL Rookie of the Year is. Who is your pick for AL Rookie of the Year?
I mean, right now, Adley's probably the leader for that. I'd say from the Orioles. Again, the Orioles have just been fantastic this year. They really have put all the pieces together in a very short period of time. They showed some signs of life at the end of last year. And I think that they're very much on pace to carry that through. I mean, Acuna and Shohei Ohtani are the
runaway.
Leaders. Well, they're the runners, but I'm saying right now they are the leaders for jersey sales this year in Major League Baseball too, which is really cool to see that international flavor take center stage here in Major League Baseball this year. Two of the most just stellar perform. I mean, Acuna, his season will be overlooked in favor of Shohei just because of the nature of what Shohei's doing, but what Acuna is doing, especially on the base paths, is truly incredible. Do you think he gets to 90 stolen bases?
Who, Acuna?
Yeah.
I got a little worried when he looked like he pulled the hammy a few weeks ago, and so I'm very curious if health does come back to bite him. I hope not, but we do know that injuries have been part of his story so far in the majors. Additionally, if you're the Braves, I mean, they're currently just 8.5 games ahead of the Marlins.
He's at 41 stolen bases.
Right. There's a good chance, though, in my opinion, that the Braves just pull away so much over the course of the next month and a half that is he going to be playing much of September?
Well, I just read the 98 Yankees book, which I would recommend you read. I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit. And they talk about what happens when you reach September and you firmly have the division locked up. How do you approach it? So maybe the Braves can learn from that. But we're talking baseball. We're talking summer, Mia, and it's just got me thinking. What's better than being out at the ballpark and chowing down? Look how delightful that looks.
Love that. Love this
Okay.
journey for us.
I was on YouTube yesterday, 3 a.m. in the typical portal that I delve
As you
into
do.
time every week, right? Every night, essentially. And I saw this video that was talking about how the food at a Korean baseball game is so much better than the
I've heard
food
that.
at an American baseball game. Well, it got me thinking, you've been around minor league baseball a lot. That's one of the big gimmicks with minor league baseball. What is the best ballpark or stadium food? It doesn't have to be a baseball. Stadium food that you've ever had.
I'm attempting to try to find it for you. If you're at all familiar with Joey Pancake, do you know who that is, John?
No, I'm not familiar with Joey Pancake.
Okay, former draft pick, a 7th-round draft pick, as a matter of fact, of the Detroit Tigers. Has never actually made it out of the minors, but Joey Pancake, a former South Carolina Gamecock, of course, is a very foodie last name. And so when he was playing for the Western Michigan Whitecaps, and that's what I'm trying to find right now, they actually did a hot dog inside of a pancake with a bunch of they had syrup on it, and then they had other stuff on it. I'm trying to find it, Sam, but I'm going to find this for you.
I can see where that works, as asinine as it may sound. I can see where that works because you get the flavor profile almost of a Canadian bacon. So if you were to put syrup and breakfast-oriented stuff, I could see where that works. You've had that before?
Yes, I have. So here it is. 2 alternating layers of pancakes, hickory-flavored pulled pork and bacon, all topped with a generous helping of syrup.
Oh, my goodness.
So the Western Michigan Whitecaps played the Cedar Rapids Colonels in the championship game of the Midwest League back in 2015. I had just moved to Iowa a month earlier, and now he's back in his hometown of Cedar Rapids. But my boy Mitch Fick at the time was working in Western Michigan, and so as part of their coverage, he came back and we teamed up for it, and they brought the pancakes. And they were so good. And I remember seeing it, John, and to your point about great ballpark food, I just thought, what an innovative thing to do. I was like, this is brilliant to see you have a guy on the roster named Joey Pancake with a K and say, let's come up with something. So I love that. But I would say in terms of when I go to a ballpark, what's a unique thing, very blessed that the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, the AAA affiliate of the Miami Marlins, are here in town because we have a lot of shrimp at the ballpark. And one of my favorite things is they do Boom Boom Shrimp, but they actually do it in a waffle cone. So it's like a bowl waffle cone with hot sauce and shrimp on it. It's next time you come down, we gotta get you
shrimp. You're talking about
and Bang Bang Shrimp. Mm-hmm.
Bang Bang Shrimp. Okay.
Yes, it's unreal. And the waffle cone, and then it all melts together. Oh, next time you come, we gotta get you one.
I can get down with that. Huh.
Actually, there's a food account somewhere on. Hold on, let me pull this up. There's a woman on Twitter who is the food account, of baseball games.
Okay.
I'm trying to find her. It's really great.
I'm trying to think. I'll be honest. When I'm thinking of ballpark food, I'm thinking of quality. And in terms of quality, I think my favorite thing I've ever had at a ballpark, you get the primo sausage and peppers and onions at Citi Field. And we're talking an authentic New York Italian bite right there. It is so freaking tasty. It's the kind of thing that I say it and you can smell it. You know what that sausage, peppers, and onions off the hot griddle smells like. And that is elite tier baseball food, in my opinion. I know that's not super extravagant, but if we're talking about quality and best things I've had, I'm putting that right at the top there.
I enjoy that. That's great.
And
Makes me want a hot dog real bad.
I'd love to know what your guys are. You go to kynchat.com or you just leave us a super chat on YouTube and we will get them up on here because we love talking about food. We love talking about anything but sports on our sports show. So if you've got anything that you'd like to throw at us, please, by all means, do in the super chats. I could talk about ballpark food. All that this guy was showing.
We are going to talk about ballpark food, though, John, because we're going to talk about hot dogs. I didn't get to talk to you last week about the hot dog eating contest. I'm going to take you behind the curtain here. So obviously it's the 4th of July, right? And so I'm in Chicago and I'm getting texts. Of course, we're in the central time zone. I'm getting texts from people saying the hot dog eating contest has been canceled. The rain. And I'm like, didn't we do this inside in 2020 and everything was fine? I understand there's thousands of people in Coney Island, but just do it inside, televise it. That's all any of us want to see anyways. Well, it was canceled, John, until Joey Chestnut literally rallies the troops and said, "Not today, Satan." He willed himself to eat 62 hot dogs and also willed the competition to occur. Is he a Mount Rushmore American athlete?
Look at that man there. 18,000 plus calories in this particular hot
And
dog.
he's like not fat. That like all these competitive eating
No, well,
guys are
because
never
he's an
that fat.
athlete. Because he's an athlete. He knows how to do it. All right. Well, first off, before actually, we can't even talk about this, Mia, because we got to talk about your rib eating contest that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know how this played out because I only got to see part one.
Yeah.
How many?
I can send you part 2. We could post it.
How many ribs did you tackle there, Mia?
So I had 5.5, but here's the funny part, John.
5.5 ribs?
Yes.
Like individual ribs, 5.5.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay. in 5 minutes.
So that the competition was in 5 minutes. How many?
Yes.
Did you eat? Okay.
Correct. And so the winner, so Leon Searcy, former All-Pro right tackle, my co-host, he had 11, and so did our listener Tobias, who came in to the studio. They both had 11. Joe had 9.5. And then I think Matt had 6 because they were like going to give him crap if I had beaten him. But here's the thing. As soon as we were done, all aside from Tobias, God bless his heart, the other 3 were like in pain. Like they couldn't move. This is awful. I ate 3 more, John. Like that's the thing is I've always just been, and we can blame my father, Silent Walt, for this.
I know
I'm slow and steady wins the race. Like I can't eat fast, but I can eat a lot. And so, yeah, I ended up having like 8 or 9. But I had 5.5 in the 5 minutes, but I was content because I got Sonny's Barbecue ribs, which the St. Louis style ribs, they are doing the all you can eat again. So go get them. You can do your own eating contest.
Was never a big fan of Sonny's Barbecue there in Florida, but I'm glad that they delivered in case.
You got to go to the one in Gainesville. You got to get Shannon Snell, former All-American guard. That's who you, the pit master. When you have like, it's nectar from the gods from him.
Okay.
I've had other Sonny's and it's okay. Then you have the one that Shannon like homemade makes for you, and you're like, oh my God, my world changed.
As far as Joey Chestnut goes, you got Kobe, you got Ruth, you got Muhammad Ali, you got Joey Chestnut.
Kobe over Michael Jordan?
I just semantics. This guy is elite in all facets. And yeah, you might say this isn't a sport, but the way that these athletes, and I call them athletes, they train and they condition for this requires the same regimen, tenacity, and intensity as training for many other sports in different ways, sure. But the dedication to their craft is there. And yeah, I'm going to call Joey Chestnut an athlete. And if you're strictly talking about dominance, there quite literally has never been anyone as dominant in their respective sport as Joey Chestnut. So if we're Mount Rushmoreing the crap out of this, hell yeah, Joey Chestnut belongs on Mount Rushmore.
Do you remember Kobayashi? I did enjoy when Joey Chestnut had like somewhat of a competitor. Now he's just been in a class by himself most of our life.
He did lose, though. It's not like he didn't. He has lost.
Yeah, but like the last decade, it's just been Joey against the clock.
He lost one time in the last decade.
Yeah, the Kobayashi.
No, not to Kobayashi.
It wasn't a Kobayashi? Who was it to?
I'll pull up his name, but he lost to somebody else.
I feel like that was the only person that ever really gave him a run for the money, in my opinion, in my memory. So I love Joey Chestnut. I love America. I love hot dogs. I love this crossover I'm about to give you, courtesy of your friend Sean Ross Sapp, where he literally tweeted out the picture of Joey, and it had the asterisks, and it goes glass shattering sound effect.
Steve Austin, yes.
Yes, it was literally Stone Cold Steve Austin as he emerged and said, "We're eating those hot dogs, rain or shine."
It was 2015. Matt Stoney beat Joey Chestnut by 2 hot dogs.
He took it to a whole new level since then. Whatever happened to Matt Stoney?
I'm not entirely
Has he been heard from since? Did Joey eat him?
I guess he has a very popular YouTube channel, from what I understand.
Does he eat food?
He does.
We did discover that last week as we were preparing for 2 weeks ago. Preparing for the rib eating contest. A lot of people have those YouTube channels.
He holds many world records. You want to know how many ribs he ate in 5 minutes?
How many?
Would you like to take a guess?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 23.
He ate 71 ribs.
What? How?
71 ribs in 5 minutes.
Like, do you just...
I don't know. He also ate the 20,000 calorie burger from the Heart Attack Grill in 4 minutes and 10 seconds while eating 4 pounds, 1.9 ounces of Halloween candy in 6 minutes. You talk about pancakes. He ate 113 silver dollar pancakes in 8 minutes, this guy.
Oh, that I could do.
Yeah, you could do that?
At least I could do some damage. I could do some damage with the pancakes.
Okay. All right.
Silver dollar, yes, especially.
Well, I mean, so what say you? Is Joey Chestnut Mount Rushmore here?
Yes, absolutely. It's more so, like you said, he's in a sport where it's him and it's everybody else. Name me another sport like that. I mean, maybe, I know he's been disgraced since, but Lance Armstrong in cycling. Michael Phelps in swimming, but even then he did at least have some peers.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Mia, let's go to the land of you're really old and remind you that it was 10 years ago today.
Oh, yes.
That Chris Bosh, LeBron James,
13 years ago, right?
13 years ago. Sorry, I didn't mean to say 10. 13 years ago today, that LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade formed to create the first modern super team. We all remember this image. They had the little party at the arena down there in Miami where LeBron said, we're not winning 1, we're not winning 2, we're not winning 3, we're not winning 4, we're not winning 5, maybe 6 championships together. And they did win a lot. They won 6, but they did win a lot. So, Mia, I ask you, was the first super team experience here a positive for the NBA or a negative in hindsight?
Well, it certainly changed the trajectory of the NBA because then it became an arms race and everybody needed to have a super team. I think in a literary sense, John, there was some beauty to LeBron James having to leave his homeland for him to come back and bring a championship to his hometown. I think adopted hometown, if you may, Cleveland, Akron, they're the same thing. I think there was some beauty and some poetry and symmetry in that. Certainly now there's an argument that the Kevin Durant's of the world left their team they were drafted by, which Oklahoma City was not Kevin Durant's home city. He's from Washington, D.C. And so why, no offense, why would you go back to Oklahoma City? Although his restaurant, best fried chicken I've ever had in my life. And, you know, there's an argument of he could only win when he was part of a super team. LeBron, the first person to join a super team, then went back and won a championship with his original team and then went to a third team and won a championship there. So I think that it has changed the course of the NBA for better or worse. Now we pivot to a world in which we see the Denver Nuggets, a team that in a different but similar fashion to the Philadelphia 76ers chose the process and scouting and waiting for guys more so than we're going to Band-Aid fix this and just pay a bunch of guys to come in and that's what we're going to do. And you still see that in the NBA. For what it's worth, the process brought in James Harden and hoped that that would rectify the ills of Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons selections in the NBA draft. And so, listen, is it good for the NBA? I don't know, but it certainly created the NBA that we know in a society that is driven by highlights and driven by superstars.
In the sense of competition, I don't think it was a good thing. In the sense of elevating the NBA in the public profile, it was a resounding success. Because now the concept of the super team has created the world's greatest soap opera ever, which is As the NBA Turns, which you can find every single summer, because it truly is some of the most appealing and can't look away television out there. What happens off the court, let alone what happens on the court. It has been very successful in that sense in elevating the profile of the NBA. I'm all about player empowerment. I think players controlling their own destiny is a good thing. I do think, unfortunately, it has resulted in the attention span and commitment span of some players maybe becoming a little fickle, where rather than sticking it out for an extra season or so with a team to really see something through, guys will grow bored quickly and say, no, I want to go to another super team. I want to go form something else. That I do think is a negative. But all things considered, I think it has elevated the profile of the league to a level that is beyond comprehension, where people look to the NBA as the most dramatic and compelling league out there.
And it should be noted that up until LeBron went to LA, it wasn't like, listen, Miami's a top 10 market, but it's not like Miami was the Lakers or the Knicks. Yes, they had won a championship earlier in Dwayne Wade's career, but it wasn't like they were this massive, New York, Chicago, LA, Dallas media market. And I think what's been cool is since the Miami Heat, you look at some of the other teams, super teams, quote unquote, that have formed. You look at the teams that have won NBA titles over the last 13 years, the Golden States of the world, the Milwaukee Bucks to some extent. If you want to look at the Denver Nuggets as a super team, I wouldn't, because they were drafted and brought into the system.
Call the Bucks a super team, though.
No, you feel they were drafted like they were. It wasn't like Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton like brought in.
Those aren't mega stars.
No, that's true.
Those are very good players who became necessary pieces to that championship. But Giannis was a homegrown talent. I don't look at them as a super team.
So what would you view Golden State though?
Golden State's a super team.
Even though they were mostly homegrown outside of Kevin Durant. They brought in
Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant changed the entire dynamic of that championship run there. Like that was a super team. The first one wasn't, but at that point they then became a super team for sure. And Clay did develop into a big time star. So yeah, they became one in my opinion, but I don't think Milwaukee, like when the 20
I wouldn't say Toronto either, but Toronto did add Kawhi. Or was that just lightning in a bottle?
I wouldn't call, and that's my whole point here. I'm not saying, more often than not, the super team strategy doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It worked for them, and it worked for the Lakers in the bubble year. And listen, I don't normally read comments that aren't super chats, but I'm going to read this one here real quick from Scott, who we appreciate you tuning in, Scott. Says bubble championships don't count, just like the pandemic era of WWE never happened. Listen, bubble championships do count. Bubble championships count more than anything, in my opinion. You had a season that was full steam ahead. These players were in peak athletic condition. They had to shut it down only to ramp back up in an environment that required such strict routine and
rules and regulations.
To me, that championship win that LeBron snagged with the Lakers is among the most impressive ever.
Would you consider the Cavs then to be a super team? The LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love?
To a degree. But there's a difference between LeBron, Dwayne, and Chris Bosh at the time, and Kevin Love, Kyrie, and LeBron.
Can we also give Chris Bosh his flowers? I mean, the poor guy.
He was a hell of a player.
Hell of a player, an unfortunate heart condition. We'll never know officially, what could have been if his career had been allowed to continue.
I mean, he's was a huge reason why that Miami team won. So, yeah, I mean, he certainly does deserve all his flowers there.
Well, speaking of guys in the NBA, there's a new guy. I was going to make a, new man on the Minnesota Vikings, but this guy plays for the San Antonio Spurs. His name is Victor Wembanyama, and he had a rough week, John. This weird run-in with Britney Spears, which we're going to talk about. So he was all over the tabloids, which her shuffle is mostly what my issue is with, not with the slap. Then he came out looking a little sluggish in his NBA Summer League debut. Was he watching out of bounds? You will have to tune in to find out.
Yeah.
He goes 2 for 13 from the field. He did rebound last night, pun intended, with a double-double in his second game of the NBA Summer League. Should we be concerned, really, this time, in the number 1 overall pick?
Like we were joking last time, but did you watch his debut game, or did you see any of his debut game?
I watched the highlights or lack thereof.
So I'm watching this thing. And I'm saying, and I'm not trying to be like hot takey and overreact at all here. This dude got bullied around in that first game. And he did bounce back last night, 27 points. He looked good. But the fact that even happened, this guy that we're talking about could be the next closest thing to LeBron that we've seen in 20 plus years. In a different way, of course. But I'm seeing him get bullied around. And we already know he's like a lanky guy, right? It got me a little concerned that he's going to run into some physicality in this league and he might find himself in trouble. And I could see us reaching a point with Wembanyama a couple years into his career where he sacrifices some of his athleticism in order to bulk up a little bit to hang with the rest of the league. Now, could that be overreactive? Maybe it is. But this dude ended up on the floor several times in his debut, and that's Summer League. You're not going against Giannis in Summer League. So I thought that was a little concerning. What say you, Mia?
It was concerning, but also we have to remember we really didn't get the Chet Holmgren experience a year ago. We only got a handful of games before he was forced to shut it down. Have we really seen... Yes, I understand the Kevin Durant comparisons and some others that have been likened to Victor Wembanyama, but they're truly unlike anything we've ever seen before. These guys that, for lack of a better term, they resemble more the characters in Space Jam than they do their finished product. Giannis Antetokounmpo was like that, but he was not given the runway that Victor Wembanyama, or excuse me, Giannis was given the runway. Giannis was allowed to develop. He didn't have to be good right away. Victor Wembanyama is going to have to be good right away. Chet Holmgren, yes, the Oklahoma City Thunder are rebuilding right now, and there's certainly a team that a lot of people think could have a say in that 9-10 spot for the seed in the playoffs. But the reality is like Giannis had time to let his body develop. I don't know if these two guys are going to have that luxury.
Yeah, and I think especially when you come in with the hype, Giannis didn't come in with the hype that Victor Wembanyama came in with, and that's going to matter. And then go ahead. For those who have missed this, Mia, please enlighten everyone on this Britney Spears mishap.
Yay! Oh my God. So you need to go watch the video.
This is one of the most random things.
It's so random because she claims like she didn't even know who he was. She just knew he was like an NBA player and he was good. And so Britney Spears, who, mind you, correct me if I'm wrong, John, is doing a residency in Las Vegas right now.
I believe so.
As a performer, spotted Victor Wembanyama at a casino and trotted after him, truly trotted. That's the best part of the video, in my opinion. And as she went to tap him on the shoulder, his security detail from the Spurs literally, now, so like, okay, let me try to do this. So she's me, right? She goes to tap on his shoulder like this, right? The guy is here and he turns around and he backslaps her hand and then it goes into her like this. It was funny. But also, it's the shuffle that makes the video. The shuffle is what you need to watch. Like watching Britney Spears at 40 some odd years old, shuffling after Victor Wembanyama was just a sight to behold, especially because he didn't know who she was.
What happens in Vegas, right? Like, what a bizarre encounter that is.
You knew TMZ was going to get the video eventually, too.
Of course.
I was so proud of them. It made me so happy.
Yeah, weird week for Wemby. Hoping that it is not a sign of things to come.
How's the rest of that Spurs team? I really haven't taken a deep dive.
I mean, you can't tell anything off.
I mean, they have Popovich, so in theory, you're
just re-signed a brand new deal. By the way, this dude's going to be coaching until he's 80. So,
all right, I pulled up their depth chart. Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell are both former first round picks. Excuse me. So is Trey Jones. Ooh, I love Devontae Graham as the backup point guard. That's great. Reggie Bullock's a bit of a bully. Sochan, maybe he's still got some left in the tank. It's not an awful roster. Zach Collins. Okay. It's not a bad roster. There's pieces.
They were just bad enough to get that number 1 overall pick. That's all.
The ping pong balls fell their way, John.
That's all that matters.
If only the Oakland Athletics will be so lucky next year.
Well, if only the Dallas Cowboys would be so lucky to find a kicker who could actually put the ball through the uprights in the postseason on point after attempts. A little oddly specific, you may say, John, but it is truthful. The Dallas Cowboys have signed Brandon Aubrey of the USFL. Who said this USFL was useless? He's going to compete for the kicking gig just months after Brett Maher missed 5 extra points in the playoffs. So that begs the question, Mia. Is it time that we actually start giving great kickers their flowers?
Kickers, punters, long snappers. I've been trying to give them their flowers for years. That's why you should tune into my other podcast, The Scoop, because both the Jaguars punter and long snapper have already come on said podcast to eat ice cream with me. No, I think that it is such a niche thing, like kicking, punting, long snapping. It's so funny. We talk so much about these quarterbacks and the specialized training they're getting. These dudes were doing that long ago, and so many of them played soccer or played a different sport and then ended up kicking.
Like, and as soon as he was playing soccer,
as soon as they make the move, they have to spend all their time and energy with a specialized coach. And while that's become more common practice among youth athletes in this day and age, like to do that 5-10 years ago, that didn't really happen. And so no, we absolutely should be giving them their flowers. Kickers and punters do matter. Special teams matters, and it's an acquired taste. And I'll give you another Jags anecdote. But the truth is, I'm sorry to the UCF fans out there. The Jags cut Matt Wright, former UCF kicker, last year, and then they cut Riley Patterson, who was their hero of the postseason win over the Chargers, because they ran the numbers. And quite frankly, those two dudes, compared to a veteran like Brandon McManus, who won a Super Bowl with the Broncos, in terms of kickoffs and in terms of being able to hit more field goals from beyond 50 yards, which is obviously an advantage to the team. Look at the Ravens and Justin Tucker, like what an advantage it is. As soon as you're within 60 yards, you go, okay, we'll make it. Like, what a weapon that is. And the fact that
yeah.
NFL teams are utilizing that. If you're seeing the Ravens and the Jags doing that, if you're the Cowboys, you have to create that sort of competition and try to put yourself in the situation to have that opportunity.
Kickers are like the most valuable players on the team outside of a quarterback, in my opinion, quite frankly.
Yes, if you have a good kicker, it's a game changer.
It alleviates so much pressure from your offense where you just got to get to field goal range and you're going to guarantee yourself points. Listen, what's they always say? Get yourself points, right? Like guarantee yourself 3 down the
points
field
on the board.
time. And when you have a kicker who is a guarantee, then you're setting yourself up in situations that allow your other players to succeed. Mike Vanderjagt, before he had that awful miss in the playoffs that really just killed his career with the Colts, he was a guarantee for Indy, and that alleviated pressure for Peyton Manning exponentially when he was out there. Do I need to say Adam Vinatieri? Because I think that one speaks for itself, right? It just makes all the difference in the world when you have a kicker or a punter who's guaranteed. I always look at Jeff Fiegels for the 2007 Giants. That dude was a guaranteed coffin corner punter every single time he was out on the field. When you are setting the opposing offense back inside their own 20 every single time down the field, you're setting your team up for exponential success. So, yeah, I'm all aboard it, Mia. Give the kickers, give the punters, all the flowers. Those guys should be getting paid a lot more money than they are.
Also, the Dallas Cowboys will do anything to try and stop our jokes about them not being back. So I applaud them. And also, competition is a good thing.
It would be a shame if they came up just short.
Yeah, that would be. Also, can I make a note? The kicker, Brandon Aubrey, he was the first USFL player to be signed by an NFL team this offseason. Do you know who the second was officially this morning?
Who?
How about a guy by the name of Josh Peterson, the son of Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson, and signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do want to note it really quick because we do enjoy wacky and weird here. So please leave a comment, super chat especially. There is going to be a lot of people that say nepotism. That's fine. You could say that. But we live in a world of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Also, for what it's worth, Josh Peterson, he played at Louisiana Monroe. He's been on 3 NFL teams before. He has, even at Louisiana Monroe, he caught touchdowns against Florida State and Iowa State. So he's like pretty good. There will be those of you that compare this to Tim Tebow signing with the Jacksonville Jaguars after not playing in the league or an organized football game for 10 years at a position in which he had never played. This is very different, folks. It's a camp body, and it's a guy who is going to be on an NFL roster in training camp. It just so happens to be his father's.
Yeah, Tebow was a gimmick.
Right, this is not a gimmick. Like, this guy has played tight end since he was 14 years old. Like, this is not a gimmick. And so I know I'm going to have to fight those crazies tomorrow on the text line, brought to you by Lifetime Enclosures.
All right, man, it's time for the Beast of the Week. Last week, my Beast of the Week was Shohei Ohtani. He was amazing. Who was your Beast of the Week this week?
So I wanted to give my Beast of the Week, John, to Denny McCarthy. And you may say, why is that, Mia? And that is because, John, I saw the light. And by the light, I mean I saw the new DraftKings Sportsbook at Wrigley Field. And it changed my world. Even if you're not into sports betting, the fact that you could sit there and watch 5 or 6 Major League Baseball games at once while you have a lovely meal and drink, it's game-changing. And then you think about the economic revenue to a city. Jacksonville's rebuilding their downtown right now. So, of course, I'm like, oh, my God, this is everything. The one bet that I made with my, sign-up bonus was I bet $25 on Denny McCarthy to finish T10 at the John Deere Classic, like the degenerate that I am. And he did. He finished T6, John. But I'm not going to give it to Denny because that's too weird. I am going to give it to Sepp Straka, though, who did win the John Deere Classic and flirted with not a 59, John, but a 57, only to double bogey 18.
Yeah.
62.
Not what you want.
Not what you want, but I'll give him this. When we looked at this, we turned it on before we left Tampa yesterday, and he's 11 under through 15. That's as beastly as we've seen on this program.
That's insane. My Beast of the Week is Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, this guy is just unfreaking believable, and he's
my vote for NL Rookie of the Year.
He is turning.
He's turned a franchise around.
He's turning Major League Baseball on itself. And this past weekend, you probably saw the clip. Stole second base. Next pitch steals third base, and then home
in 3 pitches.
unreal stuff from Elly De La Cruz between his debut homer, the life that he has injected in what was a totally dead franchise. He is a special talent. He's one of the rare talents that live up to the hype upon debut, and he is undoubtedly my beast of the week.
And I said, I said this today to my coworkers. I was like, look, like Ronald Acuna, the Atlanta Braves were going to be good. Unlike, no offense, the Cincinnati Reds, who were going to be decent. Like, they've added pieces. They've drafted well. Joey Votto is still somehow kicking. But the reality is like that franchise needed an Elly De La Cruz. The Braves would have succeeded with or without Ronald Acuna. But those two guys, when I think of baseball is fun again, when I think about trying to inject youth and to try to get people to watch baseball, it's those two dudes. Like, because they're just fun to watch, and it makes me so happy.
Agree with that.
Thank you, Latin America, for saving baseball.
I agree with that. The home run derby's coming at you tonight. We'll see how our picks hold up. This has been Out of Bounds. She's me, O'Brien. I'm John Alba. We will see you next time.